Good day. Welcome back to the Hoop Scoop, and let's take a look at my financial strategy for my family, specifically my wife and my child. And I just wanted to look at the foundation that's required before phase one even. So really, this whole strategy hinges on a foundation of life insurance. And specifically what I'm using is a whole life insurance policy. And I'm going to go through in this video how that is the appropriate foundation, but you can also use a term insurance policy as well. However, the problem with a term policy is in the name. You only get the life insurance for a certain term, and also with term policies, you don't build value or cash value inside the policy itself. So there's a host of advantages to whole life. However, whole life is a very long-term planning financial tool. So whole life has been around, whole life insurance has been around for centuries. And Disney, the land was financed with life insurance policies. McDonald's, they've helped pay everyone's paycheck during a tough time. The founders, I think it was Ray Kroc, used a life insurance policy for that. And really what we're trying to get after with the whole life policy is we want all the benefits of having a whole life policy to support my family as we are building and growing our assets. And the idea is using these features to enhance our growth process, and I'm really using it as a building my own banking system, but I will get to that down the road. For the purposes of our investments, the life insurance serves as a place to store secured cash value. Most people, when they look at a life insurance policy and its performance, they're very disappointed with whole life because the first couple of years when you put money in, you don't get very much cash value growth. But after the first couple of years, more and more of that initial cost has been covered by the insurance company. And so then your cash value grows fairly quickly. And each year, the insurance company pays in a dividend. And that dividend is technically categorized by the IRS as a refund of excess premiums that were paid. However, that's simply an accounting methodology. So it's really the profits that the insurance company made throughout the year are then paid to the policyholders. And that dividend can be paid in cash. It can be paid as a, you can take it in cash, you can take it to pay your insurance policy, you can take it to buy additional paid up insurance. And that, or PUAs is what they call that, paid up additional insurance. And that's literally buying one-time purchases of insurance that you no longer have to make payments on because you already bought it. So PUAs are very powerful because depending on your age, for every dollar you put in PUAs, you get $3 to $6 of death benefit. And so you're leveraging your money by 3 to 6 times in the future or when you pass away. What that means with your cash value, people believe that the cash value is how much cash you actually have in your policy. But really, the cash value is a representation of the present value of your death benefit. And so these insurance policies are simply a contract between you and the insurance company. And over a specified time period, usually your entire life. But they actually have a year, if you read the fine print. Usually it's 100 years or 121 years. And then after that time period, the insurance company owes you the death benefit. Now, they don't want to simply, the death benefit is much larger than the amount of cash that you've put into the policy. And so the insurance company is technically taking your money and putting it into a giant pool of assets and investing that money. And then they are growing that money in a very safe, secure fashion. However, because they are on the hook for everyone's death benefits, they have to keep a liquid pool of cash available to pay out a death benefit at any moment. So insurance companies have massive cash reserves available and ready to fulfill their obligations because death benefit is their number one obligation. That massive pool of cash grows and accumulates interest, and the insurance company guarantees, I believe my policy has a guaranteed 4% rate on the policy itself. So that's the minimum. And the dividend is anything that exceeds that 4% is an extra dividend that they pay in to the policy cash values. So for the insurance company, they are trying to grow the cash values to equal the present, the death benefit. Ultimately, that's their goal. And so with just a flat rate whole life policy with no paid up additions, the death benefit you see never actually increases, but the dividends increase over time and bring that cash value closer and closer to the value of the death benefit. When you add paid up additions to the mix, the death benefit actually goes up every year. And the cash values also grow faster and faster each year. As the death benefit grows, the cash values have to grow faster to meet those new minimum requirements for the insurance company. Now, the insurance company, they are guaranteeing that death benefit. And so they are certain that they can actually deliver on that. And they're spread out their risk across thousands and millions of different people. And some people are buying term policies, some people are buying whole life policies, some people buy IUL policies, and the insurance company has all this cash flow coming in. And the term policies, typically 98 to 99% of them never actually get cashed out. So those generate a lot of revenue for insurance companies to then pay on their guaranteed policies, like whole life policies. Now, that cash value is not simply tied up in the policy. I can access it at any time. I can either make a distribution to myself and just remove the cash from the policy, or I can access it tax-free through a policy loan. And then the insurance company charges me 5% for the right to use their money. And technically, I am using their money. So my money remains in the policy. And then I borrow money using my death benefit as a collateral. The insurance company is guaranteed repayment because they don't lend me more money than what I've put in and accumulated as cash value. So they've already received that money. And then they take my death benefit and they reduce it by the amount of the loan. And so from their perspective, they're guaranteed repayment of full principal and interest owed. And then that will happen regardless of whether I make a single payment to the policy or if I pass away. It just comes out of the death benefit. However, it gives me the opportunity to access cash at a favorable rate and I can repay it at whatever pace I want to. Now, presently, I am borrowing from my policy, but I do not have enough cash flow to reach the point where I'm actively paying down those policy loans. And the reason is because I have debt that charges much higher interest than my insurance policy and needs to be retired. So until I retire my debt in other areas and absorb it into the policy itself, I won't be repaying my policy loans. It just doesn't make sense. So, but what I am doing is making payments into the policy every single year and then tapping into that cash value and using it to lower debt or increase cash flow through investments. Now, I believe I covered, oh yes, insurance policies are also very tax favored, and they are protected against lawsuits in most states, not all states, but most states. So that is why I want most of my cash to eventually end up in a whole life policy. And then once it's in the policy, it is safe, secured by the massive assets of cash that life insurance companies hold. And then I can access it whenever I want, pull it out of the policy loan and invest or pay down debt. The reason why I'm not using an IUL, which is an indexed universal life insurance policy, is because I already have stock market risk through my portfolio. And IUL proponents are like, well, you're not adding more risk because you don't lose any money when the market goes down. And that's true. You don't lose money when the market goes down in an IUL. However, you still have your fees that you pay each year for the IUL. And IULs it's basically you're combining a term policy that renews every single year at a higher and higher price. And then that term renews for 1 year. And so when you're 35, let's say, you can get a year of term for, let's say, $500 for $1 million death benefit. And then you have the IUL until, let's say, 85 years old. That same 1 year of term will, for $1 million, if you tried to renew it, you're 85. You're probably going to be paying $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. And in order to make that payment, you are relying on the market performance in your portfolio to outweigh those premiums. And I'm not sure that that's an accurate number, but it's just a hypothetical example. And so do I want to rely on the market to guarantee that my portfolio can continue covering its cost over time? Not really. Like, I don't want to tie myself to the market both in my stock portfolio and in my life insurance policy. So for that reason, I'm just much more comfortable using a whole life policy. Also, the whole life policy, you're locking in your insurance cost. So my insurance cost will never increase, unlike an IUL. And so I'm paying a lot up front for my whole life policy, yes. It's much more expensive up front. But on the back end, when I'm 80 years old, I don't have to worry about my policy going away all of a sudden because the premiums have increased and the market performance wasn't enough to cover all of the premiums I needed to pay. So now the whole life, the other aspect, my brother actually has an IUL and he is unable to tap into it and use the cash inside his IUL partially because it hasn't grown very much. He's not contributing a ton of that to his IUL, but also apparently in the first year or two, you're not allowed to tap into your cash value, even through loans. Whereas with the whole life policy, immediately as soon as that cash posts as cash value, which takes anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, you can apply for a policy loan and start using it. And so that's much more flexible than for the IULs. And then the last factor is just a whole life policy is guaranteed. And if you look at their illustrations, IULs are only guaranteed up to usually the age 75, 85. And by the time I'm in my 70s and 80s, I don't need the life insurance as a emergency fund to help take care of my wife if I pass away. At that point, I need the life insurance to secure my family's legacy. So this switches from a simply providing immediate cash to my wife if I pass away that she can turn into cash flow to a legacy planning tool that I can use to offset my portfolio. So let's say I need to live off of my portfolio, or I make investments and they don't pan out very well, or I have to draw down my portfolio to live on it in my old age. My life insurance policy is still there and can provide an inheritance to my children. And I could set up a trust or something and set up instructions for how the funds are to be distributed. So now, the other nifty thing is the leveraged death benefit. So I kind of alluded to that with the paid up additional insurance, but basically for every dollar that I'm putting in, I'm going to get many more dollars out of it in death benefit. Especially the younger you are when you pass away, the more leveraged your death benefit is. So my policy is structured so I can put up to $25,000 into it. Usually I'm putting about half that, but I'm hoping to max that out. And each year that I do that, $5,000 goes to the base, and the remaining amount goes to paid up additions, which for every dollar that I put in, I get $5 to $6 of death benefit. So that's a 5 to 6x leverage over the course of my life, basically. Now, that's not hitting it out of the park. We're not talking about like a 10-bagger or something, but that will help keep up with inflation. So my death benefit should pretty closely mirror the effects of inflation as time goes by. And that will help smooth things, serve as a hedge for inflation. In addition to the premium costs get easier and easier over time with inflation to pay as well. So I'm leveraging my death benefit and I can repay it whenever I want. And my death benefit secures the loans that I borrow for the insurance company. And the end goal of all of this, if I don't pass away as a younger person, I'm intending to build an entire banking system with policies on myself, my wife. Right now, we just have a convertible term on my wife. And that simply means we can turn it into a whole life policy, but currently it's a term policy. And then when my child is born, we're hoping to take out a policy on him or her. Not sure what the child is. We'll find out soon. But we'll set up a policy for them. And they'll have their own policy by the time they reach adulthood that has cash available for them to cover education expenses, purchase cars, help with any investment opportunities they want to make. And we'll be teaching them how to use that throughout their childhood. So that's the idea, is building this policy using the cash value and leveraging that cash value to pay down and absorb all of my outstanding debts to other banks. And then once it's all absorbed into the policy, then I will simply direct all my free cash flow into the policy and hold it there while I await investment opportunity. So presently, though, most of my cash is going into my portfolio, growing that, and then I use the portfolio to pay the policy, and then I'll pull that money, put it back into the portfolio, pay down debt. So it's making my money do double duty in multiple areas. But I am looking to build enough cash flow so that my job and my wife's job are backed up by cash flow in our portfolio, at which point we have time and space to work on our own projects, build our own businesses. I can record more videos, all sorts of stuff. Anyways, so that is the big picture idea and why the life insurance policy is the foundation of what my entire plan is based upon. So none of this plan works without the life insurance. But the life insurance is simply the tool, and this entire plan will only work if I manage that tool properly. And so this is me just explaining and stating how I plan to use it. And should something happen to me, this is how I hope that my wife and my children will use the policies as well. So, all right. So that is a wrap for this video. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up in the comments. I don't think I have anything else to add, and this video is getting a little bit long. So thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe. Next week, I'll be discussing the importance of my portfolio and the specific investing strategy that I'm employing, and how I intend to leverage that with the life insurance. I briefly described it today, but we'll go into much more detail next week on the stock side of the foundations for phase 1. So, all right. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.